Before your feet even hit the floor tomorrow, I want you to pause before reaching for that coffee, because in those first 90 seconds of your morning, you're either opening the single best fat-burning window your body gives you all day, or you're slamming it shut without realizing it. And the fix takes less than 2 minutes. Here's what almost nobody explains properly. In the first 60 to 90 minutes after you wake up, your body sits in a metabolic state it won't return to for another 24 hours. You've fasted for roughly 8 hours. Your liver's glycogen stores are drawn down, and your insulin is at its lowest point of the entire day. Since insulin is essentially the hormone that keeps fat locked inside your fat cells, low insulin means that lock is open. In that quiet morning window, your body naturally pulls a higher percentage of its energy from stored fat than at any other hour. You didn't earn it, you just slept. But there's a second thing happening in that window, and honestly, this is the part that matters more. Inside your muscle cells sits a signaling protein called PGC1-alpha. Scientists describe it as the master regulator of mitochondrial biogenesis, which is a fancy way of saying it's the switch that tells your cells to build more mitochondria. More mitochondria means more machinery for burning fuel. It means more steady energy at 2 in the afternoon. It means a metabolism that hums a little hotter, even at rest. But that switch isn't always listening. It responds to very specific signals, and it's most receptive when you're fasted and about to move. Now here's the problem. Most people walk into that window and immediately shut it down. A muffin, oat milk, 3 sugars in the coffee. Even plain black coffee, on its own, is a missed opportunity, because caffeine alone captures only a fraction of what's possible when it's paired correctly. The window opens, you waste it, and the next one is 24 hours away. Let me tell you about a man I heard from recently, 52 years old, waist measuring 41 inches. The frustrating part wasn't the number on the scale. It was where the weight was sitting, all of it around his middle. His fasting glucose was creeping into the pre-diabetic range, and he had a 2 p.m. energy crash so predictable he literally scheduled meetings around it. He changed one thing: this drink every morning, followed by one specific action I'll explain at number 1. 8 weeks later, his waist was down 3.5 inches. The afternoon crash was gone. He didn't change his dinner, his job, or his gym routine. Individual results vary, and this isn't medical advice. Always check with your doctor before making changes. What I'm about to show you is 4 ingredients. It costs roughly 40 cents. It takes under 2 minutes to prepare, and every single component is available at any grocery store today. But I want to be straight with you up front, because there's a lot of nonsense in this space. Nothing you drink is going to double your mitochondria overnight. That's not how human physiology works, and anyone telling you otherwise is selling something. What this drink actually does is send 4 separate signals that current research suggests genuinely support fat oxidation and mitochondrial efficiency. It's not magic, it's leverage. And leverage applied every morning for 8 weeks is how bodies actually change. I'll ask just one favor: hit subscribe. Stay with me until ingredient number 1, because it's the one nobody expects. It costs nothing at all, and without it, the other 3 do maybe a third of what they're capable of. Every study I reference is linked in the description below. Check them. I want you to check them. Before we get to ingredient number 4, I want to be honest about what this video is and what it isn't. What you're getting is 4 ingredients and the honest reason each one is there. That's real. It works. It cost you nothing except the 12 minutes you're already spending with me. But 4 ingredients is 1 morning. It's 1 lever pulled once a day. The questions I get most often are the ones that start after the walk ends. What do I eat in the 90 minutes after? What do I do about the afternoon slump? What changes if I'm training hard? What changes if I'm post-menopausal and everything that worked in my 30s suddenly doesn't? What if I'm already on medication and I don't know what interacts with what? Those answers don't fit in a video. I tried and it wasn't close, so I wrote them down instead. It's called Cellular Freedom. The QR code is on your screen. That's the only time I'll mention it. Quick thing before we dive in. Tell me in the comments how old you are and what your biggest metabolic frustration is right now. The midsection, the afternoon crash, or the blood work. I read every one of these myself, and it tells me what to make next. Now, ingredient number 4. This is the engine of the whole thing. Number 4, matcha green tea, not brewed green tea. Here's the distinction that costs most people the entire benefit. When you steep a green tea bag, you're pulling compounds out of the leaf and then throwing the leaf away. Matcha is the whole leaf, stone ground into a fine powder and suspended in the water. You're drinking the leaf itself. Depending on grade and preparation, that puts substantially more catechins into your cup than a standard steeped bag. The catechin that matters most is EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate. Why does EGCG affect fat at all? The mechanism is elegant, and once you understand it, you'll see why the other 3 ingredients exist. When your body wants to release fat, it sends out norepinephrine. Norepinephrine binds to your fat cells and essentially tells them to open up and release fatty acids into the bloodstream. That's fat mobilization, the necessary first step. But your body also has a cleanup enzyme called COMT, whose entire job is to break norepinephrine down and shut that signal off. The signal fires, then COMT deletes it. That's the break. EGCG inhibits COMT. It doesn't create a fat-burning signal. It stops your body from erasing the one it already sent. The signal stays active longer. This is why the caffeine in matcha matters so much. Caffeine works on a completely different pathway. It blocks an enzyme called phosphodiesterase, which sits further downstream in that same signaling chain. So caffeine amplifies the signal, and EGCG prevents its shutdown, hitting 2 separate points in the same cascade. That combination has actually been studied directly. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition compared green tea extract against caffeine alone and against a placebo, measuring energy expenditure across a full 24-hour period in a respiratory chamber. The green tea extract group showed roughly a 4% increase in 24-hour energy expenditure and a meaningfully higher rate of fat oxidation. The caffeine-only group did not. The catechins were doing something caffeine alone couldn't. Now, 4% isn't going to change your life on its own. I want to be honest about that. But 4% every single day, compounding across 8 weeks, alongside 3 other levers, that's where this gets interesting. Here's how to prepare it. 1 teaspoon of ceremonial or culinary grade matcha powder. Whisk it into about 2 ounces of water that's hot but not boiling, around 175 degrees Fahrenheit, or boiled water that has sat for 2 minutes. This matters more than it sounds. Boiling water degrades catechins and makes the matcha taste bitter and grassy, which is the #1 reason people try this once and quit. Whisk in a zigzag motion until it foams. Then top up with another 4 to 6 ounces of water. One important note, matcha contains meaningful caffeine. And if you're sensitive to stimulants, or you're on medication for blood pressure or a heart rhythm condition, please talk to your doctor before making this a daily habit. That's not a legal disclaimer. It's a genuine interaction worth respecting. Now, number 3 is what makes number 4 actually reach your bloodstream, because right now, most of it isn't. Number 3, the juice of half a fresh lemon. You could execute number 4 perfectly and still lose most of the benefit before it's ever absorbed. Catechins are chemically fragile. When they hit the pH of your small intestine, a large fraction of them break down before your body can take them up. Researchers using digestion models have found that a majority of catechins can be lost in that transition. A big portion of what you paid for, gone. Ascorbic acid, vitamin C, stabilizes them. It lowers the local pH and acts as an antioxidant, keeping the catechin molecules intact long enough to be absorbed. Research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that adding ascorbic acid to green tea substantially increased the amount of intact catechins recovered after simulated digestion, with EGCG among the most protected. This is the difference between drinking matcha and actually absorbing matcha. Same cup, same cost, completely different outcome. There's a second reason for the lemon that has nothing to do with absorption. Citrate. The acid in citrus is a direct intermediate in the citric acid cycle. The process happening inside your mitochondria right now, turning fuel into usable energy. I'm not going to overclaim and say dietary citrate dramatically changes cycle throughput. The evidence in humans is thin. But it's a genuine metabolic substrate, and it costs you nothing to include. Preparation is simple. Squeeze half a fresh lemon directly into the matcha once it's cooled slightly. Fresh, not bottled. Bottled lemon juice has usually lost most of its vitamin C to oxidation during processing. If the taste feels sharp, the acid actually cuts through the grassiness of the matcha, and most people find the combination more drinkable than matcha alone. Do not add milk, not dairy, not oat. Milk proteins bind to catechins, and research suggests this reduces how much your body absorbs. If you need it softer, use more water, not milk. Now, number 2. This is the one that explains why we're talking about visceral fat specifically, not just fat in general. But quickly, if this has been useful so far, hit the like button and subscribe if you want the rest of these. It genuinely helps this reach the people it's meant for. Number 2, a 1/4 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon. Ceylon cinnamon, not cassia. This distinction matters, and I'll explain why in a moment, because it's a safety issue, not a preference. Here's why cinnamon earned its spot in this drink instead of something flashier. Visceral fat, the fat packed around your organs, the fat that pushes your waistline out and drags your blood work in the wrong direction, behaves differently from the fat under your skin. It's more metabolically active, more inflammatory, and far more responsive to insulin signaling. Which means if you want to target visceral fat specifically, insulin sensitivity is the lever, not calories alone. Cinnamon has been studied for exactly this. Meta-analyses pooling multiple randomized controlled trials have found that cinnamon supplementation produces modest but statistically significant reductions in fasting blood glucose, with several also showing small improvements in insulin resistance markers and, in some analyses, waist circumference. I want to be careful with the word modest because it's doing real work in that sentence. Cinnamon is not a diabetes treatment, and it's not going to reorganize your metabolism. The effect sizes in these trials are small, but small and reliable, applied daily in a window when insulin is already at its lowest. That is the whole thesis of this drink. You're not looking for one dramatic intervention, you're stacking small, true things. Now, the Ceylon versus cassia issue. The cinnamon in most supermarket shakers is cassia, and cassia is high in a compound called coumarin, which can stress the liver at sustained high doses. A daily teaspoon of cassia cinnamon for months could plausibly exceed the tolerable daily intake set by European food safety authorities. Ceylon cinnamon contains only trace coumarin. If you're doing this every morning, use Ceylon. It costs a few dollars more, and it's not optional. A 1/4 teaspoon. Stir it in with the lemon. It won't fully dissolve. That's normal. Stir it again halfway through drinking. And now, number 1. This is the one that decides whether the previous 3 do anything at all. And it isn't an ingredient. Number 1. 20 minutes of walking, starting within 10 minutes of finishing the drink. I told you at the beginning that ingredient number 1 costs nothing, and that without it, the rest does a fraction of its potential. Here it is. You have to move. I know that's probably not the exciting secret you were hoping for. Stay with me for 90 seconds because the reason this works is more specific than exercise is good for you. And the research behind it is the strongest thing in this entire video. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition tested this directly. Overweight and obese adults were divided into 2 groups. Both did the same moderate exercise program. One group drank a catechin-rich green tea beverage. The other drank a control beverage with the same caffeine but without the catechins. Same exercise. Same caffeine. Only the catechins differed. After 12 weeks, the catechin group had lost significantly more abdominal fat than the control group. And critically, when researchers imaged the participants, the difference showed up in visceral fat specifically, the deep abdominal fat, not just the outer layer. The catechins alone didn't do that. The exercise alone didn't do that. The combination did. And this is where PGC1 alpha comes back. Remember that switch from the beginning of the video, the master regulator of mitochondrial biogenesis? Muscle contraction is its single most powerful known activator, not supplements, not compounds. Contraction, when you walk, you're pulling that lever directly. There's also evidence that caffeine independently increases PGC1 alpha expression in muscle tissue, which means the matcha and the walk are hitting the same switch from two different angles at the same moment. So the sequence is deliberate and the order isn't arbitrary. You drink it. Catechins and caffeine enter circulation. Norepinephrine signaling is prolonged and amplified. Fat is mobilized out of storage and into the bloodstream. Then you walk, which gives those mobilized fatty acids somewhere to go, into working muscle, to be used as fuel. If you skip the walk, you mobilized the fat and then let it circulate right back into storage. You did the hard chemistry and skipped the easy part. 20 minutes. Not a workout, not a run. A walk at a pace where you could hold a conversation but would rather not sing. Outdoors if you can, because morning light exposure has its own well-documented effects on circadian regulation, and circadian regulation influences metabolic function in ways researchers are still mapping. Start within 10 minutes of finishing the drink. Caffeine and catechins appear in plasma quickly, and the window you're aiming for is the next 60 to 90 minutes. You now know why the walk matters more than any single ingredient. That is the most useful thing in this video, and you didn't pay a cent for it. Here's what I couldn't fit. Everything I just showed you happens before 9 a.m. Then there are 15 more hours in your day, and those 15 hours decide whether tomorrow morning's window opens wider or narrower than today's. That's the part nobody makes videos about, because it doesn't fit into 12 minutes. If you want the full picture, the post-walk eating protocol, the afternoon crash strategy, the evening wind down, 7 more drinks built to the same standard, plus adjustments for over 50, post-menopause, insulin resistance, and week 3 troubleshooting, scan the code. And if you're not going to grab it, that's completely fine. Do the matcha and the walk tomorrow morning anyway. That part is free, and it's most of the benefit. So that's the drink. Matcha. Fresh lemon, a 1/4 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon, and a 20-minute walk, under 2 minutes to prepare, around 40 cents. Everything available at any grocery store today. I want to close by repeating what I said at the start because it's the most useful thing in this video. None of these 4 things is dramatic on its own. 4%. Modest reductions. Small but significant. Those are the honest words the actual research uses, and I'm not going to inflate them for you. But 4 small, true things, stacked in the correct order, inside the one window of the day when your physiology is already primed to respond, done every morning for 8 weeks, that is a fundamentally different proposition than any one of them alone. That isn't a trick. That's just how adaptation works. Consistency is the multiplier, and it's the only ingredient I can't give you. So don't try to do all 4 tomorrow. Do the matcha and the walk. That's it. Add the lemon next week. Add the cinnamon when the lemon feels automatic. Your best metabolic window opens tomorrow morning, the same way it has every morning of your life. The only question is whether you actually use it. If this was useful, subscribe. In the next video, I'm breaking down what to eat in the 90 minutes after this walk, because that window has rules of its own, and most people get it exactly backwards. And a quick reminder, This video is for general educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always speak with a qualified healthcare professional before making changes to your diet, exercise, or medication routine.